Welcome to Not Starving Artist, the podcast. I'm your host, Brooke Benson, money coach and equity actor. I am your financial cheerleader, here to help you build your financial confidence and have power over your money. The best part, no budgeting or bi-weekly paychecks required. I went from being a broke BFA grad having weekly panic attacks about money to a financially confident, wealth-building actor and business owner. Money gets to feel fun, simple, and sexy, and I am going to show you how. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the podcast. So, are you feeling a little like you're slipping into a little bit of avoidance with your money at the this here 19th of December? This episode is for you, okay? Because around this time, and listen, I feel it too. I feel this energy kind of sucking me in of like nothing counts for the rest of the year. Everything's about to just like be in this limbo land where it feels like nothing counts. My out of office responder goes on tomorrow for the whole rest of the year. So it does feel like nothing, who cares, right? It's holiday time, it's party time, it's nap time. Like it is just that. And so with that energy, it's really easy to go from a healthy I'm going to rest and relax and give my brain space, and I'm not in a hustle season and I'm not in a push season. It's really easy to go from a healthy expression of that into fuck it. I'm going to have to return to real life, quote unquote, hard quotes on that, return to real life in January. And I'm not going to be allowed to enjoy whatever I want to enjoy. So I might as well like go all out when nothing counts at the end of the year. I might as well go all out before I'm not allowed to anymore. And I like really tighten up the reins in January. And so then you go into fuck it blackout mode, right? And fuck it blackout mode, I'm going to give you all a refresher on what that means. Fuck it blackout means you are in a space of like trying to make a good decision, right? You're like trying to make a decision that feels responsible, but there's a part of you that's like pulling you to like make a different decision or do something else. And you're like kind of stuck between these two things. A lot of times it happens with spending decisions, right? Where you like want to buy something, but you're like, no, I shouldn't, but I want to. And like, oh, here's why. And then you start doing like pro and cons list and like weighing the things and trying to decide. And then your brain is so fed up and you don't want to make the decision. So you just internally go, fuck it. And your brain just shuts off and you hit submit payment or you buy the thing or whatever and you walk out and you like enjoy that. And then you like kind of come to and then you're like, ooh, I don't know if I feel great about that decision. So you black out again and you go dark and you're just like, not going to think about it. It's fine. I'll figure it out later. That's future me's problem. And then it becomes like a fuck it blackout spiral of you make a decision that you realize you didn't really like. And because you don't want to feel the guilt about that, you don't give yourself another option to not feel guilt, right? You don't allow yourself to like see the decision, decide that you might have made a different decision if you were fully aware, and then give yourself compassion and love for why you were in the fuck it blackout, right? So then you don't keep spiraling. But a lot of times the guilt hits and you're like, I hate that feeling, black out, bye. So you black out again, and then you spiral, and then you spiral, and then you spiral. This time of year breeds that energy, okay? That's the fuck it blackout. So you feeling like you've been pulled into that a little bit? Here's the deal. I saw someone posted this on Instagram the other day, and I was like, wow, that's a really great metaphor. And they said that, if you ding your car in the beginning of December and you have an appointment at your body shop in January, you don't go through the rest of the month just like banging into things, being like, well, I have an appointment in January, ding it here, I'm going to run into this, I'm going to jump the curb here. You don't do that, right? Like that doesn't make sense. But that's sometimes what we do with our money. We're like, ooh, I have already overspent for December, so like, fuck it, run it up. Right? Or like, I didn't have my CEO party in November or December, so might as well just not now. And I'm just going to wait until January. I'm going to wait until January 5th to do it. Right? Because I've like lost touch with it. Might as well not. Right? It doesn't make sense though when we think about it in the terms of like a car, right? So why would it make sense to do this with your money? But it makes sense. So I also want to validate, and like I said to you, like I feel this energy. It's a palpable energy in the air of this weird in between holiday time, right? In between holiday and New Year time. So it's there. So we have to like clock that, be aware of it, and then decide how do we want to move forward through the rest of the month. Okay? And a lot of times why we get pulled into that blackout, or why we don't want to continue to stay intentional throughout the month, why we avoid that piece, is because you've actually required too much of yourself, or you've decided that keeping your money shit together isn't fun and you want to have fun, or you've decided that sticking with your goals means you can't do the things you want, and you want to do the things you want. So you might as well just like black out on your goals, right? Because you also don't want to do the thing where you're like, well, I don't want these goals then. You want to have both, right? And you've decided that hitting your goals requires certain things from you. And there's no way that that could be fun. There's no way you could still live an enjoyable lifestyle while hitting your goal. There's no way you can still feel luxurious and carefree while hitting that goal. There's no way you could still have the amount of free time and freedom that you do while hitting that goal. You've decided that that's not the case. So you have put your financial desires and your financial goals at odds with the kind of life you want to live. So of course you are constantly going to be at war and in blackout mode, because you're having to choose one or the other, but you don't want to give up either one. So you're having to like turn the light switch on and off in both. Like you have to like turn the light switch on in financial goals and then off in the fun and your enjoyment. But then you're going to hate that. So then you have to turn the light switch on in the other one. And then this one has to go off, when you could actually turn both light switches on. You just have to realize that your money goals and your financial desires are not at war with the kind of life you get to live. You can pay off debt and like still enjoy your life and still go on vacation. Right? You can still hit a savings goal and put money into your retirement account without cutting back all your fun spending. You can say yes to spur of the moment spontaneous shit if you have the right kind of money system. If you put spontaneous spur of the moment shit into your money system, then you can still say yes to it. Like, why have you made it in your brain that those two are at odds with each other? I'm going to tell you why. It's because the narrative around financial wellness and how you have to hit your goals, a lot of the stuff that we hear is like, yep, the budget and the spreadsheet, and you're going to cut back, but it's going to be worth it because it's time to be a responsible adult. And so that's a lot of the narrative we hear. And again, when I am here to do it, not starving artists, is tell you to fuck that. And you can do money in a different way and still hit all of your goals. That's what I teach you to do with the money flow method. And I teach you how to do this inside of Cashed Up Creatives, which is my online course. So if you want to learn how to set up this simple system that's going to help you maintain flexibility in your spending while still hitting your goals, even if your income is fluctuating, that's what the money flow method was built for, right? So that's like the simple system that's going to help you manage it. But then when it comes to like negotiating, there's a podcast episode that's coming out next week that's going to talk about how to actually set goals that you're going to hit and be able to hit with more ease and not like need a lot of willpower in order to like power through to do the responsible thing. That episode is coming out next week. So that's going to be a really good pairing episode with this one here. Because what I want to talk about right now is all of this shit that you think is going to be required to make sweeping financial changes in your life, it's not true. There's actually probably only like 2 things in your life that you need to change and work on and focus on in order to make sweeping financial changes. Okay? And that sounds crazy, but I'm going to tell you what I mean by that. A lot of the stuff that you feel is getting in the way of your financial wellness. And some of the main ones is like, I never sit down to look at it. I don't want to. It overwhelms me. Like I'm anxious about it. So you just like try and spend as little as possible, or you just make sure you always have a certain amount in your checking account before you feel like you're going into code red. Like there's an avoidance. Like I literally don't want to look at it, right? The other one is I don't make enough money to do what I want. And then the third one is I spend too much. So I never have enough wiggle room to be able to do the things that I feel like I should want to do with my money, right? Or that I do want to do with my money, i.e. savings, retirement, just having wiggle room for when things happen. Those are usually the three main ones. So what is currently getting in the way of you hitting financial goals or you having the kind of financial life that you want, right? So I'm gonna give a very specific example of, I was working with a client who we were working a lot on her spending because she was not only having like fuck it blackout spending, but a lot of her identity was wrapped up in the kinds of spending that she was doing. So when we were talking about like, okay, there is debt that she wants to pay off. And then there's also like savings goals and retirement goals that she wants to hit. And we got to the deep why of like artistically why those goals were important to her, right? And then it's like, okay, so as you're going through your week, what are the actual like things that are happening where spending happens that you don't want to happen, or when spending happens that you feel like doesn't need to happen? Like there's really only two things, probably between like 1 and 3 things that actually are happening. So for her specifically, one of the things we nailed down was there was fuck it blackout spending that was happening that was directly tied to her level of stress in her life. And one of her main ways to relieve stress was going out and buying something. And so what we realized was the main stress was work stuff. There was work life that was directly causing stress, which was directly causing fuck it blackout spending, not just on items, but like in her ability to like make food for herself and eat it, right? There was constant eating out that was needing to happen. And it was all tied back to work stress. So then we got back to the work stress issue. And it's like, okay, can work stress be solved while staying in this job? Or does the job need to change? Right? And the thing that we figured out was the job needed to change at some point. Now that didn't mean that she quit the job immediately, right? We discovered what the actual root issue was of the spending, the thing that was getting in the way of her being able to pay off her debt and create higher savings was actually she needed to switch into a job that had specific things in place for her to be able to not recreate the stress she had in her current job, okay? So it was just this one thing, right? And I also want to say it's not that this is like, oh, just like a quick, easy little fix, right? But it's one fix, which is find new job. And now I have very specific parameters and very specific things that I need to be looking for in said job, not only income level, but kind of hours, like what the job actually looks like, etc., to be able to then be able to get a handle on the spending that was happening out of the stress, right? So then there were very specific action steps. So instead of trying to like put herself on a budget, instead of trying to decide how much she was allowed to spend on certain things throughout the week or throughout the month, instead of trying to like give her we talked about tools in the moment, in between the time where she gets the new job and now, right? In between that time, things she can do to decrease the fuck it blackout spending, which she would always come like every week being like, hey, here's what happened and here's what I was able to do to avoid this spending. Or I did the spending, but then I went and made a return. Like we gave her Band-Aids for the problem in the meantime, but we were focused on that future fix, right? That big fix that's actually going to have a ripple effect on the whole of her finances. And bonus perk, she's going to be making more money. So she's going to have more wiggle room to put towards her goals, right? So then it became about like, how are we going to put that in place, right? So job applications, networking, and I say those words in the loosest term, right? But like for her career path, what did that actually look like for her? Of the things she could be doing, actual action steps every single week to bring her closer to fixing that one thing that's going to have a ripple effect. Right? So that was the first thing. And then the second thing, like I said, it's going to be between 1 and 3 things that are like the core things that I want you to focus on to fix, to make sweeping changes in your financial life. The other thing was her literal identity and how she identified as a person and how she attached identity to how she was spending. So there were certain categories of spending that were like the bigger chunks, and those types of spending, what did those spending amounts or things mean to her. And what we got to was there was this identity and version of herself that was not actually in alignment with who she actually was and what she actually wanted. And actually none of that spending had anything to do with who she actually was, right? So then this is where we get into like the deeper like heart stuff and who I am, how I present to the world, why am I afraid of presenting who I actually am to the world, kind of stuff that all of us have, right? And you might have this in relation to your spending, because a lot of times we use our spending to put on or to present in a certain way, right? Pretty much all of the clients I've worked with have had a flavor of this, right? You probably have a flavor of this. So then there was that piece where then the work was, okay, I need to actually like sit down and work on who I am and how I want to present. And as I'm going through and making intentional purchases, does this align with the kind of not only person I want to be, but the things that I want in my future lifestyle? Like, who is that actual person in the future? Okay. So for this specific client, it was two things. It wasn't like all of these things and she had to like look at her numbers all the time and stick to this budget, and she had to like focus on all of her categories of spending and like tell herself no and like cut up her credit cards and all of those. It wasn't any of that. It was, hey, we need to get you into a new job and we need to assess your identity. Because then the ripple effect of all of that was automatically going to equal less fucking blackout spending, less spending on stuff that didn't actually bring her long-term joy, which meant there would be more wiggle room to put towards savings and retirement, which then were actually anchored into who she was and her identity as a person and as a creative, that then was intrinsic motivation, right? So that was that example in mind. For you, I want you to think about, like, what are those 1 to 3 things that are the actual real root causes, real things that are getting in the way of the financial life that you desire? For me, before I started my whole financial wellness journey, or as I was starting my whole financial wellness journey, one of these things for me was I need to figure out a way to make much more money than I am. Like quadruple the amount of money that I'm currently making, because there's no way this hourly rate that I am making teaching part-time is going to allow me to live the life of an artist and live where I want to live and be able to travel how I want to travel and even still have the flexibility that I want, right? So I had to figure out the income piece. That was my big blocker, because I'm like, I can budget my life away. I was a budgeting girly back in the day. If you haven't listened to like the OG, one of the original podcast episodes called Budgeting Ruined My Mental Health, scroll all the way back down to like episode 3, 4, something like that. You'll find it there. If you haven't heard that, I tell my whole story there. I was a budgeting girly, right? I was tracking every dollar. And even with all of that work, I wasn't seeing the needle move in the way that I really wanted it to move. So the income piece was a thing staring me in the face. And so when I was thinking about how to make more money, there was a lot of stuff that came up, blocks that came up of like, am I worth making this much money? What even on earth kind of jobs could I have as an artist where I might be on contract away for 2 or 3 months at a time? Could I have that would even pay me that much? What are the skills that I have that would pay me that much? And then I had to answer those questions. And I had to work on my mental headspace that told me that that wasn't possible, right? And I had to dream what was my perfect scenario. And like, this was even before Not Starving Artist got created. And I got my first virtual assistant job. And that felt really good. This was also during the pandemic when I know some of us were getting like real thick unemployment checks for a certain amount of time. So for me, when I decided to like get this job, because I knew those unemployment checks, especially in Florida, you never knew when they were going to stop. It was like sometimes they would come and go. It was a fucking mess. I know it was pretty much everywhere, but Florida specifically. But I had to make the conscious choice to stop receiving unemployment checks, to go and start working as a virtual assistant, which then increased my income exponentially more than those unemployment checks even were. But I had to work through this mindset block of like, I have to hold on to this unemployment check for as long as I can because I'm never going to be able to make this much again, which was not true. But I had to like take that leap of faith in myself of like, no, I'm going to now say no to these unemployment checks for now, because I know that this job is going to then increase that income in the future to the amount even above those unemployment checks that's actually going to afford me the kind of lifestyle I want as an artist, and in a way that was flexible so that I could still continue my artistry. So with cluing into this one specific problem that was getting in the way of me and the financial reality I desired, one, brought up a lot of the mindset shit and the identity shit that I had to work on. But then two, gave me really specific action steps of like, okay, and if this is the job I want and at this income level and with this kind of flexibility and these are my values and I want it in this timeline, then here's what needs to happen. And that like directly affected how I searched for jobs. So I've also just given you big sweeping examples of what this could look like, but I want to give you a micro example because it might not be like this big overarching change. It could be something so small and so simple that could have a ripple effect on your life, right? If we're talking about takeout and eating out, I had another client, this was something we talked about, was one of the reasons that she would always stop for takeout is because she didn't have quick food at home that she was really excited to eat. I've talked about this before in the episode about how to actually eat less takeout. The small fix we needed to give her was have food at your house that's quick to eat and that you're really excited to cook for yourself, right? And not even cook, literally like warm up or whip together for yourself. So we figured out the foods that would make her so excited. Like what was the stuff she was getting takeout for? What are the equivalent things that she could have in her fridge that didn't even require meal prep, right? Or that she could have in her freezer to be the takeout placebo, right? To be the thing that feels like, ooh, I kind of shouldn't be eating this, right? Like even that kind of energy. If you're going to eat, and I'm talking like shit takeout, right? Not shit takeout, but you know what I mean? Like the delicious shitty takeout. If you're going to eat delicious shitty takeout, like give yourself the option to like spend very little money on delicious shitty takeout food, but it's in your freezer. So like at least you're not spending the money on the shitty takeout, right? But you're still like getting that energy or like that excitement of like, I can't wait to get home to like heat up that thing, right? Or eat that thing. You're allowed to do that. I don't know where we decided that like to make change, you have to jump from where you are to the perfect version of you, to the version of you that eats like a green goddess salad bowl. And you've given yourself the option now of a green goddess salad bowl or picking up Taco Bell on your way home. Are you kidding me? Taco Bell is going to win out every fucking time, especially if Taco Bell is on your walk home from the train. Every fucking time. You have to give yourself that middle ground, which is go get yourself some really great quesadillas or tortillas. Go get yourself some really good tortillas, good cheese, and get that Taco Bell sauce from the store. And when you get home, you get to whip up yourself not one, but 2 Taco Bell quesadillas with that sauce, that special sauce. And guess what? You're also going to get a case of Diet Coke and have that in your cabinet. So you get to crack open that crisp Diet Coke with your homemade quesadillas. Like, are you kidding me that wouldn't be just as exciting for you? Like, you've given yourself an in to be able to reduce takeout. Right? So why did we decide that you had to be the perfect meal prepper or the person that made everything fresh, right? Or like did these meal preppy things in order to eat less takeout? Now, if you also have health goals, that's totally fine. Great. But also, if you're only giving yourself the option between a green goddess bowl and takeout from Taco Bell, and you keep falling back into Taco Bell, start with the baby incremental change. Like if you want to eat all your meals at home, but you keep always eating takeout, you need to start by shifting yourself to eating shitty food at home. And I'm not even saying quesadillas are shitty food. The way I make a quesadilla, right? Let me tell you. But move that to eating at home, but eating stuff that you wouldn't necessarily deem healthy. And we're talking, and y'all know I hate a binary, but sometimes when I give examples, that's how I have to talk in them to keep my brain straight in what I'm trying to articulate here, okay? So move eating shitty food to at home, right? And then once you've gotten into that routine and that feels good and you've kind of like kicked that previous habit, then it's like, okay, maybe I'm going to add some veggies to this homemade Taco Bell quesadilla, and that feels really good. And then maybe you're like, I'm going to eat 1 quesadilla instead of 2, and then I'm also going to have a chicken sausage with it. Like, whatever health means to you, whatever it means to eat healthy for you. But, like, then you can make those small incremental changes. But I want you to see that, like, the core of the thing that was getting in of your financial progress, because you were just eating takeout all the time, is that you were expecting yourself to be perfect, right? And so you just had to give yourself stuff that was really exciting to eat at home. I have a taco dip that has changed my fucking life. I am never not excited to eat this thing every single day. It is cottage cheese, a little bit of Mexican blend cheese, and taco seasoned ground turkey or ground chicken or ground beef. And I put spinach in that too. And I mix that shit together. I make a batch of like 4 servings of it at a time. It's like a tub of cottage cheese, 1 pound of meat mixed with taco seasoning, and then like 4 servings of cheese, spinach. Mix that shit up, and all I have to do is pop it in the microwave for 1.5 minutes, and I eat it with tortilla chips, and it has changed my life. I am so excited to come home to eat that thing every single fucking day. It feels crazy that I've been eating it for this long. I've been eating this thing for probably like 9 months now. No, probably longer than that. It might be a year. Almost every single day I eat this thing. And also, not only is it delicious and I'm excited about it, but it's like really good for me, like high in protein, keeps me full, and has actually helped me with some of my health goals across the course of this year. But like that was literally one recipe because I was trying to solve the problem. How do I make something that I am so excited to eat, that tastes so good, that's one of my favorite like categories of foods, but that also takes me it's so easy for me to not even really meal prep, right? I'm literally just like mixing shit together. I don't even really have to meal prep, and it doesn't take long for me to heat up. Like those were the things that I was running into, like being able to eat in between coaching calls and not wanting to meal prep on a Sunday because like I like to just enjoy my Sunday and like do my own shit. And I wasn't excited about the stuff that I like had in the fridge for so long. So all I had to do was find one recipe that I could eat over and over and over on repeat that was really good for me, that didn't take a lot of time to heat up or to make. And like that took me a minute to find, but do you see how I was only solving one problem that then had a ripple effect on my life? Because once I had that, then it was easier to do a lot of other things, right? Because I like had a meal a day that I was so excited about. So then like the other meals felt easier, right? And then I was able to like figure out what I learned from creating this recipe, and I was able to implement it into other recipes. Or if you realize that one of your main roadblocks is that so much of your money goes to eating out and going out with friends, like that's a huge amount of where your money's going. Don't try and like cut back on going out with friends. And like, you don't even have to be like, hey, let's all just like hang out at our houses all of the time, right? What if you could still go out, but what if you do the work of finding in every single neighborhood the places that have not only the drink happy hour specials, but the food happy hour specials? There are so many good specials around the city, but like you have to find them and you have to be the one to pitch them, right? You could probably cut your eating and drinking out spending by 1/3 if you just only went to places that had specials and you only got the stuff that was on happy hour, right? So like, and I'm not saying you have to do that, but if that's what you're finding is your main roadblock, and it's really hard for you to think about completely shifting that social dynamic or being able to do that, great. Like give yourself that one notch closer to where you want to be, which is let me go find the places that are on happy hour and let me pitch this new place. No one's going to be mad about going to a place that has a great happy hour. I have never been around anyone who's ever been upset about someone being like, hey, can we go to this place? They have an incredible happy hour. Everyone's always like, amazing, let's go do that, right? So that might be a little project for you, but then that could have a really big effect on your finances if that's where a lot of your money is going. Now, I also want to be very clear about this because there's a lot of things that you could get really in the weeds about, right? So I would say like if I tried to like only go to places that ever had a happy hour, or like only getting food that was on special, because I don't like go out to restaurants with a bunch of people that often, and I'm not drinking as much as, you know, I have been previously. This year I've like drastically decreased the amount that I drink and go out for drinks. That wouldn't have a huge effect on my money. So me putting a lot of effort into that is not going to have a big shift there financially, right? So you have to figure out what are those things that are going to have a big shift for you, right? Your core roadblocks. And again, it's going to be between 1 and 3 things. And it might be a super small, like I just need to figure out one meal that I can have at home that I'm super lit for. Or I need to shift this job and here's exactly why it needs to shift and how it needs to shift. It also could be a mindset block. Like you have a constant narrative running through your brain that you find comes up over and over and over again in different financial decision-making scenarios, right? Of like, well, who knows when I'm going to have money again? And that who knows when I'll have money again thought might come up when you're deciding to spend on something, and that could push you into spending on it or not spending on it, right? Depending on how that thought manifests for you. That thought could also come up when you are up for a gig that actually kind of goes against your values, or like you see a breakdown on Actors Access that's like kind of AI, but they're like trying to pitch it like it's not really promoting AI, but it's like kind of AI. And you're like, but that $500 would look real good in my bank account. But like, and who knows when I'm going to have money again. So even though it's like kind of goes against my values, I'm going to submit for it, right? But do you see how like spending money on something, submitting for a certain job, or even like when you're doing your CEO party and you don't want to move the money that's accumulated in your landing strip into your flex account and your firm account because you're like, that number just looks really good and really high, and I just want to keep money in there and at that high number because who knows when I'm going to have another paycheck coming in. So now 3 different scenarios that are very different in your financial landscape, but have the same thought running behind them over and over and over. That might be the thing that you need to work on, right? Which is actually, it's not about like, how can I force myself to move this money and like stick with the money flow method? And how can I make myself spend money on things that I want because I know that I have the money? Or how can I figure out how I'm going to submit to jobs and my decision making? Like, instead of doing any of that, you just need to work on that thought of like, how am I in complete control of my income? Or what are the things I need to do to feel more in control of my income? Why do I feel out of control with my income? Then you can have a whole journaling moment about all of that. So these 1 to 3 core things that are in your life can look a million different ways, right? But you're going to have 1 to 3 of them. Usually 2. I feel like most of the people I've worked with, it's like 2 things. There's usually like a very practical thing, and then there's an identity shift or a mindset shift. So go look for your 2 things. I'm going to tell you it's probably 2. Go look for that practical thing and go look for that identity mindset shift, right? And then you're going to focus all of your attention and energy on those 2 things to have those sweeping financial shifts for you as it ripples out. Instead of trying to focus on like every little thing that you think is going on, because that's going to drain all your energy, all your brain power, all your willpower, and you're going to go into a fucking blackout. All right. So it's actually much simpler than you think because it's only 2 things. 1 to 3 things, 2 things. So you're going to have to like focus on less, but you're going to have a lot more intentional energy on those 2 things. So when we're thinking about continuing through the holiday season, instead of going into that fuck it blackout energy, you're focused on only 2 things, right? And what are those little shifts or those projects that I need to focus on in order to figure out how to solve these 2 problems, right? And you're not going to solve these 2 problems overnight. So let yourself ruminate on solving these 2 problems over the course of this month. So I'm releasing you from having to penny pinch this month. I'm releasing you from having to track every dollar. I'm releasing you from having to beat yourself up for maybe spending a little more in the holidays, right? If you've been doing the money flow method, if you've been doing your financial CEO parties, if you've been in Cashed Up Creatives or a one-on-one client of mine, you know that we plan to spend more in November and December because the holidays happen. So if you didn't plan to spend more, know that next year you're going to plan to spend more because that's actually how you want to spend in November and December, right? Okay. So don't black out. Don't go dinging around your car, right? You're going to sit with these 2 main problems that you're discovering. Let this be an ideation month for you, where you don't have to like focus so much on the spending and the numbers and the hard goals, right? Next week's podcast episode, we're going to talk a little bit more about that. Let this month be more about what are the main things getting in the way. Let me sit with that. Let me meditate on that. Let me journal on that. And then let me start ruminating on what those solutions could possibly be for those 2 main problems. Okay? And again, if you want support with this, Cashed Up Creatives, we have our next bonus free monthly office hours call in January. So you can sign up now to start learning, get your hands in the video portal and start implementing some of this now. And then we can talk through it together in January when we have our next office hours. You can find all the details to join Cashed Up Creatives in the in the show notes, there's a link there. And then if you do want that one-on-one private coaching support, the link for one-on-one money mentorship to learn more and to book your sales call, it will also be there. My sales calls for one-on-one money mentorship will open back up in January because we are currently out of office for the holidays. So you'll be able to book that sales call come January time. I hope this was helpful. I can't wait to hear what you all come up with for your intentions and your problems. I'm not going to be on Instagram, but please DM me because I'll be reading all of my DMs, or you can email our email. Again, it will be out of office, but I will look at all of them when we're back in office in January 5th. I can't wait to hear what comes up for you. Have a fantastic rest of your week. Thanks so much for tuning in. Come join me on Instagram for more on how to build a simple, sexy relationship with your money. My Instagram handle is @NotStarvingArtists. And if you want to dive deeper with me, head to the show notes to learn more about one-on-one coaching. If you love this episode, subscribe, leave a review, and share it with a friend that you want to get rich with.